Welcome to the Painting Lines Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things tennis. Join Erik and Aidan in their discussion for updates on news and pop culture, and from hot takes to betting, they've got you covered.
Ready? Play.
Welcome back to Painting Lines. Last week we gave an update from the first week at Rolland Garros, a week which was full of early upsets. And this week we're going to be recapping the second week. And we're mainly going to be looking at the quarterfinals onward. Erik, is there anything else you want to say to introduce this episode?
Just enjoyed the tournament. Congrats to Djokovic, really separating himself from the rest of the big three. All kudos to him. To be honest, I didn't see it coming. I thought he was going to lose to Alcaraz in the semis. So good to see him get it done.
I agree. It was very cool to see him win. But let's jump right into it. I said we were going to be talking about the quarterfinals onward mainly, but the fourth round, really, there was only one big event that I can think of, and that was the double bounce controversy with Rune and Cerundolo. Did you see that?
No, tell me about it.
So Rune hit this ball, and it was relatively clear that it had double bounced, but the chair umpire didn't see it. So Cerundolo stops the point, and he goes to the chair umpire and is like, that ball just double bounced. Like, what are you doing? I won that point. And then Rune didn't say anything, and the chair umpire was like, I didn't see it. And so Cerundolo actually got penalized and he lost the point. It's crazy to think about that because at this point with like all the automation and stuff that they have, you'd think that they couldn't really miss this.
Right. It kind of reminded me of what happened today with Bublik and Goffin. Similar scenario, wasn't a double bounce, but Bublik hit a nice, not a winner, but a ripper down the line. It was called out, and then Goffin couldn't even play it, but they replayed the point, and Bublik was essentially telling Goffin, like, come on, man, you weren't going to get there. So I think because of the etiquette in tennis, you have to admit when you're wrong. Like, I think in both scenarios, Rune should have admitted that he was wrong. He saw the double bounce, and same thing with Goffin.
Yeah, I think they both knew he wasn't going to get that ball back. He barely got a racket on it. There's no way he had enough time to hear the call out and react and then not hit the ball back in.
Kind of happened to me this weekend. So I played on Sunday. And what happened was when I hit the drop shot and it double bounced, my opponent got it, but it was a clear double bounce, like just clipped up. And I just immediately stopped the point right there and was like, two bounces. Like I called it if he wasn't going to call it.
The weird thing is, I think in actual match play where it's, say, a tournament setting, it's technically whoever's side it's on, it's their call.
Oh, okay.
So, like, if I hit it onto your side and it double bounces and then you hit it back over and I say that double bounced and you're like, no, it didn't, I can call a judge to come over and watch the next few points, but they can't actually change anything because it's technically your call, I believe.
Right. That's a good point. Hey, let's get back to the automation. Like you were saying that shouldn't be happening in today's tennis, right? So I would argue that it keeps tennis pure to keep technology out of it.
That's true.
And tennis is a traditional sport. There's a ton of already in place traditions that a lot of the fans and the players don't really want to see go. But it kind of gets to the point where sports in general, like think about...
in baseball, they're doing it right now. They're trying out the pitch monitors so that they could get rid of home plate umpires.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about them not using Hawkeye in the French Open? Like, it's a little ridiculous.
It does seem kind of strange. I think they should have at least had challenges.
Yeah, it's pretty funny to see a ball hit on the other side of the court, the umpire run down, point at it, and then make the call. Like, come on, man. You're not making that call.
It's like, also, you don't necessarily know that's the exact mark either.
Exactly. But yeah, look at the US Open. They don't even have line judges anymore. All the calls are made on the system.
It is definitely a sign of a shifting sport.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about technology evening out the playing field, though. Like, back to what I was trying to say with other sports. If you have two players who one is significantly better than the other, you could argue that that person should win every time with the right technology because it'll make the right calls. But without technology, it essentially evens out the playing field because the person who is less skillful, less talented will ultimately benefit from lack of the do you think sports calls should be perfect, or should there be a little human error in it?
Well, I think that either way, you can't say that the favorite person would always win. But I think the technology aspect, while it is nice to have the umpires there, and I think in some sports, there's a lot of sort of ambiguity in a call. So you can't necessarily have a computer that can analyze the play and the situation. Like in basketball is really what I'm thinking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of subtleties in how a charge can be called versus a block.
Yeah.
So unless it's a really advanced AI, it would be really tough, I think, for it to do that. In tennis, because of what the judges really do, I think that they probably could be replaced without there being very much impact on the game, and it probably would be better.
Yeah, I think they'll always have umpires, chair umpires at least, just to sit there, kind of moderate. But in my opinion, I think this is why I don't like watching basketball, because all the reviews slow the game down so much. And that's why I like tennis. Tennis, despite it matches lasting over 5 hours, moves relatively quick. They have a clock on serves. You're not allowed to sit all day in between sets. Like, it does flow. And if you're stopping to review every single point, then
That's true, but I think the replays, like, you couldn't really have a computer make those calls in basketball at this point.
no, I just think they shouldn't even review it. That they should just let the game go on with human error.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, whatever the ref calls is final.
Okay. Whew.
That's my opinion.
I feel like that just puts even more pressure onto the refs.
Yeah, I mean, they get paid the big bucks, don't they? At least NBA refs do. I don't know how much tennis umpires get paid. That'd be a good.
Probably a decent amount.
Let's look that up.
But anyway, moving on from that controversy, the quarterfinals, I really had two matchups that I was really excited to see. And that was Rune versus Ruud and Tsitsipas versus Alcaraz. Two matchups of big guys. I talked about last week how early upsets can get rid of those big matchups that you kind of hope to see in the later rounds. But these were a couple of matchups where I was like, these are guys that are all title contenders, essentially. First up, Rune versus Ruud.
It was not a pretty match.
Yeah. Ruud really dominated Rune in those first two sets. Rune was not playing great.
I was going to say,
Yeah?
so sorry to cut you off, but I don't think he necessarily dominated him. I think Rune just played so poorly.
I just meant dominated as in it was really one-sided.
Yes, okay, fair.
But yeah, and then Rune left the court after the second set and then came back in the third set and was a different player, and he won the third set. And I was just sitting there thinking about, what was it, Madrid, where he left the court?
Yeah.
And then came back, and I was like, if Ruud loses this, he's
know.
going to be pissed.
I know. Because Ruud eventually, remember he spoke out against it. He was
Yeah.
like, hey, players should not be allowed to do this when the other person's on serve. It needs to be checked. He was hoping that Rune would have the integrity and, not do it, but this would have been fun. This would have been hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't know. He probably looked in the mirror and was like, or his mom or someone in the locker room told him, hey, eat a Snickers. You're not you when you're hungry.
Exactly. He said something like
Came
that.
back a whole different person.
Yeah. But then Ruud didn't get rattled from that third set. He was able to deliver that in that fourth set and come out on top.
Yeah. Thank God.
Honestly, not as close of a match as I was expecting going into it. So.
Oh, I know. And to be completely honest, I think Rune probably would have played Djokovic way better than Ruud. I think we would have seen a 5-setter in the final.
Djokovic has experience sort of against Ruud, and he knows how he plays. I think Rune being so young, it gives him a little bit more of an unknown aspect. So Djokovic would have had to deal with that a little bit more.
I agree. My thesis on this is Ruud is a very defensive player and passive, where he'll let the opponent make the mistake, hence how he beat Rune, because Rune essentially beat himself. But you can't do that against Djokovic. Djokovic is just too sound of a player, and he won't make those mistakes. Whereas Rune, he's aggressive. So when his highs are high and his lows are low.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Ruud was just sitting there waiting for the wall to miss. He's
Yeah.
like, oh, shit, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, Djokovic was just grinding him down.
Yeah, but then in the other quarterfinal I was talking about, Alcaraz versus Tsitsipas, I mean, really just
that was disappointing.
did not deliver on what seemed like would be a really intense matchup.
Yeah, I know. We were hoping that would be, one of the big rivals we see in the future.
Yeah. I do remember, though, after that match, some tennis outlet posted a video, and it was just cartoon of one person spanking the other, and then they just posted Alcaraz's face over the person. And
Oh,
I'm like, damn, man, had to go there.
yeah. Well, he owns Tsitsipas. Their head to head is 5-0. Stefanos has never beat Carlos.
That's pretty wild to see. But in the other quarterfinals, Kachanov took the first set off Djokovic. It was the first set Djokovic lost in the entire tournament. But then after a tiebreak in the second, Djokovic kind of had all the momentum and just carried it through the rest of the match.
Yeah, that's classic Djokovic, dropping the first set and then coming back and owning him.
Exactly. Just let his opponent get comfortable and then just like completely destroy them. And then we had that last quarterfinal matchup with Zverev versus Echeverry. And I don't think this was a matchup anybody expected to see in a quarterfinal. Echeverry unseeded and Zverev, the number 22 seed, kind of both coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, I know. Well, those Argentinians, they're good on the clay. The South Americans in general.
Yeah. And Echeverry got a set, but I was never really worried that Zverev was going to lose. It seemed that it was written that he would be in the semifinals. I don't know, destiny.
Mm-hmm. Destiny. Love it.
And then we got to the semifinals. Ruud versus Zverev in the bottom half, and Alcaraz versus Djokovic. And I got to jump into that first matchup with Ruud and Zverev. It really just seemed like Zverev finally hit someone in the draw that was a very capable top-level player. I mean, he played Tiafoe, who's a great player, but not in the top 10. And then he plays the number 4 guy in the world and really sees what the clay court level should look like.
Yeah, this match was pretty funny because I was looking at the odds leading up to the match, and it wasn't even, but it was pretty close. You can get Zverev maybe like plus 110, Ruud minus like 105. And then as the time approached to the game, the odds were just in so much Ruud's favor. And my dad actually texted me, like, because he lives in Florida, so you're not allowed to sports bet there. And I'm up in New York, so I place his bets for him. And he texted me, like, hey, can you put some money on Ruud for me? And I didn't see the text until like 30 minutes into the game when he was up, I think 4-love or 4-1. And I still put the money on, but I got the worst odds. I got him at like minus 385. I didn't even realize the game had started because I was at work. So I placed this bet. I'm like, wow, like the odds shifted a lot. And then I texted my dad. I'm like, hey, got you these odds. Sorry. And he goes, well, I guess that's what happens when he's up 4-1. And that's when I realized the match started. So I kept checking in on it. And it was just out of hand. It was over before I knew it, before I can even try to put it on.
Blew right through him, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Let's get on to the other one.
Really, the matchup that I think probably the most exciting matchup for people of the tournament, even more than the final. I think people were looking forward to Alcaraz versus Djokovic. I think it's especially because they had their first matchup. It was like a spectacular match. It was 3 set. Obviously, it wasn't a Grand Slam, but it was 3 sets, and it was incredibly close sets. I think it was a tiebreak in the third. And so people were just hoping for more fireworks from this match. So the first set, it went out, and I think it really was just some of the highest level of tennis we've seen this year. Djokovic went out, and he just took that set. He broke Alcaraz, but it wasn't like Alcaraz played badly on his serve. Mm-hmm. Djokovic really just went out there and was just taking everything that he could.
Yeah, how about that shot?
I was going to bring that up a little later, but yeah, that was one of the best shots I think I've ever seen. Should we describe it for the fans if they didn't see it?
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, so Djokovic hits a drop shot, and Alcaraz comes up to the right side of the net, chips it back over. Djokovic hits a sort of like a half lob. He's just trying to get the distance so that Alcaraz will hopefully give up on the ball. Alcaraz is running after this ball, and everyone's just looking at him like, oh, there's no way he gets to this, right? He slides. He doesn't even just slide to the ball. He slides across the path of the ball behind it. As he slides, he swings, spins, and hits the ball at a crazy angle back, continuing the ball across the court, and passes Djokovic. And I think everybody in the audience had to have a second where they were just stunned. And then
I think
everyone was just
Djokovic
like,
had a second where he was stunned.
yeah, it was crazy. It was so good of a shot that I think Djokovic almost forgot that he was playing in the Grand Slam semifinal for a second and was just like, that was
Yeah.
one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen.
Yeah, the only thing I can compare that to is when Roddick and Federer played a while ago, and Roddick hit that smash, and Federer just whipped it right back, hit a winner down the line, and Roddick was in such disbelief. He took his racket and threw it on the other side of the court and bowed down.
Yeah.
That's just like what you got to do.
There's
Like
nothing there's nothing
if
you
you're
can do at that
yeah,
point.
exactly. If you're Djokovic, you're kudos, clap, give him a smile. But
But yeah.
wow, the slide was amazing.
Such a spectacular feat of just pure athleticism.
But do you think that pure athleticism is his Achilles heel as we get in later to the match?
In a way. I mean, we all know like he grinded out in that second set, battled back. But then like right as Djokovic seemed to be fading, Alcaraz hit what you're mentioning, like this cramping issue. And it may be because he's such a ridiculous athlete. Maybe just his body can't handle the endurance of that.
Very well said. It's going to be interesting to see how his body holds up the rest of his career. Like if he's going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and if he's going at this rate, he might not even make it till 30.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a situation. I mean, it isn't the same type of injuries that Nadal had, but obviously Nadal is known for having some injuries throughout his career, and he has a similar thing. Everybody talks about Nadal and how he's the grinder. He goes out there and he plays every single ball. He's playing so deep behind the baseline, getting to everything, and he's had a lot of injuries as well. So I wonder if this is a similar thing that we're going to see with Alcaraz.
Yeah, so you brought up an interesting point, injury, and this is a cramp. I don't believe the two are the same. Like, yes, it impeded his performance, but is this something that he could fix? Like, how do you not cramp up? I think if you take the proper precautions and prepare, maybe you could avoid the cramps.
Yeah. Just maybe it's just an experience thing.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, I was kind of shocked when I started to see it in this match because we saw it earlier in the year.
Mm-hmm.
When he was playing Sinner in Miami, the same thing happened. He split the first two sets and then goes into the third. He just can't even move. And Sinner's just completely taking advantage of it. And you have to think, what is his coaching staff doing to deal with this?
Yeah.
Because it's clearly an issue. And if he can't maintain such a high level at these big tournaments and is just running out of gas, something has to be done.
Yeah, and I'm sure they will. I'm sure they'll look at this as, something to be learned.
Yeah, and then after, obviously, he cramped. Djokovic took those last couple sets. And that set up the final. To me, Ruud is in a very similar situation to he had last year. He's playing an all-time great on clay, and I don't know how he can prepare any differently than he prepared for Nadal, to be honest.
I think he lost the match before it even started. I think he is too nice. He needs to come more with a killer attitude and more confidence. Like if you hear him talk, he basically says that he knew he was going to lose to Nadal last year. He knew he was going to he basically says, how do you play against these guys? Like they're great. It's like, if you want to win a Grand Slam, you have to have the mindset that you can win, not just
Yeah.
be happy to be there.
Yeah, I mean, think about Djokovic's first Grand Slam. He won the 2008 Australian Open against Jo-Wilfried Tsonga, who's a great player, who's an excellent player, long time in the top 10. But it was Tsonga's only Grand Slam final. So maybe Djokovic got lucky in that final and that helped him break out, but not everybody can be lucky like that.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, to win the final, I mean, Alcaraz had this too. Alcaraz had to beat Ruud again.
Mm-hmm.
If Ruud had maybe won that final, he would have had more confidence going into this one. But Alcaraz got the chance, and he was able to win this Grand Slam, didn't have to play one of the big three. That's a luck that you can't rely on.
Mm-hmm. Well, a point I wanted to bring up was, do you consider Ruud part of the next gen? Because I feel like he came onto the scene a little later than them, but he's around that age.
Well, I feel like he's kind of in between because, like, he's not really the same as Medvedev, Zverev, people like that, where they're like 27, 28. but he's also not as young as like a Sinner or a Runa or an Alcaraz, where they're
Right.
19 to 20, 21.
But Tsitsipas, he's 24. He's considered next gen, maybe because he came onto the scene a little earlier than
Maybe.
there. But uh, the reason I brought it up was because I saw a great quote. Jason Gay in the Wall Street Journal, he referenced the next gen as the lost gen because
Yeah.
of the fact that Djokovic and Nadal, not so much Federer, but
That's a good way of describing it.
But how about the actual match? What did you see? What did you like?
I mean,
What didn't
I
you
think it
like?
was a good match in terms of like the quality of tennis played, but it just seemed like Djokovic was just the better player.
Mhm.
And so Djokovic just had that extra 2% in every single set and then took it in 3.
Yeah, you saw it a lot later.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it looked like it could go Rude's way when he got
Well, I
that
mean, yeah, he
first
jumped
break.
out at the front. I mean,
Yeah,
he jumped out and he was up 3-0 and then 4-1 and then Djokovic broke back.
yeah, I should have cashed out my bet then.
Exactly. But yeah, honestly, Rude right now kind of reminds me of where Team was at in like 2016 through 2019. Because in the French Open in 2016, Team lost to Djokovic in the semis. Then he actually beat Djokovic in straight sets in 2017, but lost to Nadal in the semis. Then in 2018, he lost to Nadal in the final. And then in 2019, he beat Djokovic again in the semis and lost to Nadal in the final. He just couldn't break through. Obviously, Team got that lucky Grand Slam at the 2020 U.S. Open. Didn't have to play Djokovic in that match. Djokovic obviously famously got knocked out of that match for hitting the lineswoman with the ball.
Yeah.
But it's a situation for Rude right now where he's just looking for that little bit of luck where either
breakthrough.
he has just his day where he plays against Djokovic and beats him, or plays against Nadal and beats them, or he gets lucky in his draw and doesn't have to play them.
Well, you made a great point. Like with Team, I wonder what this is going to do to Rude's mentality, his outlook on his career. Like, is he so defeated? Out of the last 3 Grand Slams that he's been in, he's won 1 set. Like that
Yeah.
cannot be good for your psyche or your confidence.
I think that's definitely something he's thinking about, but I think that at 24 he still is thinking about, oh, I have a long career ahead of me. I can continue to improve, and I think he still has confidence that he will win a Grand Slam at some point. And I really hope he does. I mean, it would be really rough for him to lose in 3 finals and not get one.
Yeah, he's also a hard guy to root against,
Yeah, he's such a nice guy.
Yeah. That's why I think it hurts though. I think he's too nice.
I see what you're saying. He doesn't have that extra little bit of fire. But the thing is, he probably does. He just doesn't show it on the court.
Yeah, well, he said that he was quoted saying that he wants to be that player that will never break a racket on tour.
Yeah.
And that he wants to be in control of himself 100% of the time, which I respect him for.
Yeah. I wonder if he's just going home and just like pulling out like 25 rackets and just smashing them on his dining room floor.
Oh.
Just going full like McEnroe, but only in his like house and just yelling at like the wall.
Yeah.
But now Djokovic has the most slams all time. How do you think this impacts the GOAT debate? I mean, I saw so many comments on social media saying it's over now. It's over. Do you think that's the case?
Yes and no. I do objectively, but there's a part of me that will always say Federer is the GOAT just because he had to play in 2 different eras of tennis. He played against the Sampras's and the Agassi's, like guys who were legit then when the style of play was different, the technology wasn't exactly there, and then also played throughout 2 decades of innovative tennis, different styles. So I think based on that, Federer is still the GOAT. But if you're talking just based off Grand Slams, wins, all that, Djokovic. And I want to hear what you guys think. I want to hear what the fans think too. So, what about you, Aidan?
I mean, to me, I think that him winning this, while hypothetically, he now has the most Grand Slams, and this is actually interesting enough. This is actually the first time he's ever led the Grand Slam.
The race.
Yeah, the Grand Slam race, because he's always been like, even when they all had 20, he was tied with them. But to be completely honest, I don't think this Grand Slam really impacts people's opinions that much. Maybe I'm wrong.
Why do you say that?
I say that because I think that the people that thought Djokovic was the GOAT, they aren't impacted, right? But him having 23 versus 22, how many people were really like, that 23rd is what makes him the GOAT? I don't think there were that many people that were looking at that race because he already had tied for the most. And he had so many other stats that said he was the best ever in those statistical things. I don't think this one extra Grand Slam really changes that much. I think the people that were saying Federer's the GOAT, he already has more Grand Slams than Federer. Him having 3 more versus 2 more, I don't think will impact how people would view that difference.
So you're saying the GOAT debate doesn't solely depend on how many Grand Slams a player has?
I
Basically,
think,
right? It's you're encompassing everything.
I think people view the GOAT debate differently. And so some people view it in terms of the statistics. Some people are looking at it, oh, Djokovic has the most of all these stats. He's the GOAT. Other people look at it for like Federer and they say, oh, Federer did these things. He was a groundbreaking tennis player. He dominated his era. He maybe had the best peak of all time. That makes him the GOAT. But then there are other people like people say, oh, Bjorn Borg, he won 11 Grand Slams before he was 25 and then retired. Maybe he's the GOAT because he was so dominant then. Rod Laver won all 4 Grand Slams, then turned pro because the Grand Slams were actually amateur when he played, based on my understanding. And he turned pro for 7 years, so he couldn't play in the Grand Slams. And then he went back and he won them all again in the same year. So there were 2 separate years where he won all 4 of them. Maybe he's the GOAT because he was insanely dominant whenever he played in them. He would have had so many if he had been able to play in his entire career. So I think that it depends on how you're looking at it. And because of that, I think the people that already thought Djokovic was the GOAT obviously still think it. I don't think anybody's really been that swayed by that 23rd.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. Did you happen to see the other GOAT who was in Djokovic's box?
Tom Brady?
Tom Brady.
I did see that.
That's pretty funny. That's ironic because
Yeah.
think about it. Like we're saying he's going for GOAT status, and to have Tom Brady, who many people consider as the GOAT, there, pretty funny. What did you think of his jacket? How it already had the 23 imprinted on it?
I noticed that, and I think they commented on it. But I also looked back, and I think when he won the 22nd at the Australian Open, it also had a 22 on it.
Oh, wow.
So I think it was something that was kind of a trend. Like they had already done it before in a way. But it was more noticeable because it was the or more brought up because it was the actual breaking the record.
Right. I think if Djokovic would have won that calendar slam in 2021, he would have been undisputed GOAT. All right, let's keep this GOAT debate going another time. It's never ending. There is no right or wrong answer.
That's true.
But we're going to hop into segments. So what's new in tennis?
Well, while Djokovic was winning this 23rd Grand Slam, a former rival of his was kind of getting a moral victory in the London neighborhood of Surbiton. Murray won the Surbiton Trophy Challenger, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's his second title of the year. I mean, 2 challengers, but still a second title of the year. And I think it's great because I think it's just building up his confidence going into Wimbledon, which he's been really, I think, hoping to do well in.
I think it's great too. This dude just clearly loves to play tennis.
Yeah.
You know, fake hip replacements, still going, playing challengers, man. He does not care. He just wants to play.
Exactly.
Good for him.
I think it's very different than how some other people play challengers where they're viewing it like, oh, this is going to be our way of building back up to get to the higher level. I feel like Murray's just like, I'm just going to go play and just like try to win.
I feel like it's a high risk, high reward because if you don't win the whole thing, it looks terrible.
Yeah, like Team.
Yeah, Berrettini.
Or Berrettini in Phoenix, yeah.
Jeez.
Speaking of Berrettini, I mean, did you see his match against Sonego?
I didn't see it, but I heard he
Oh my
didn't do too
God.
well.
He got absolutely clobbered. And what's crazy is he won that tournament last year.
Oh man.
So, like we were talking about last week with the ranking points, he is going to go straight down in terms of ranking.
Ooh.
I mean, I think next week is the Queen's Club Challenger, which is like,
Mhm.
or not Challenger, the Queen's Club tournament. Interesting because if he doesn't do well in that tournament, he's going to drop out of like the top 50.
Is he in danger of not qualifying
For what,
for
Wimbledon?
Wimbledon? Wimbledon, yeah.
I think he will probably be in the ranking high enough that he'll get a qualifier
Mm-hmm.
and won't have to like go through the actual qualifying process, but it's going to be closer. I don't think he'll be seeded.
Wow. Yeah, the only highlight I saw from that match was I think Sonigo put up a desperate lob and Berrettini could have smashed it, but then like lightly hit it on his racket and like as a drop shot, and Sonigo ended up chasing it down and then lobbing Berrettini. Berrettini tried to be cute, go through the tweener, and lost the point. One that he clearly should have won.
That's so bad.
Yeah. All right.
What about you? What did you see?
Mine is kind of a little gossipy part of the news, but Stefanos Tsitsipas and Paula Badoza are Instagram official. So those two are dating. Can you believe that?
I
I
don't really
mean,
know who Paula Badosa is.
she's in on the WTA tour, dude. She's a
Oh,
pretty famous Spanish tennis player.
well, that's why
Oh man.
our podcast is about ATP tennis because I unfortunately don't follow WTA tennis
Yeah,
super
I think
closely.
it's pretty. I think it's funny. I don't know how. I know Monfils. He has a tennis player wife too.
What did you think about him saying he wanted Margot Robbie at that one tournament?
Yeah, right. Right. Well, I thought it was pretty funny. I saw this because I saw a picture of them two and Steph, or it was actually, get this, they made an Instagram together. Very cringy. And it said on it was a selfie of them and it said 0 grand slams, but all the love in the world.
Yeah,
So
I wonder if he
between
came up
them.
with that caption.
Oh, I know. At least they're making light of their
Yeah,
lack of grand slams.
yeah. Well, you want to get on to bet of the week?
Yeah, bet of the week. There wasn't too much action going on this week. I'm having to take Tiafo minus 330 over
Oh,
Lajeka.
massive favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I did do some digging into it though, and Tiafo's pretty decent on grass. He's got a 56% winning percentage on the grass surface, whereas Lehechka only has 36%. So I don't know. It should be a roll. I'm hoping. I'm really hoping because this does not pay out too well.
Yeah.
Um, what about you? Who are you taking?
I'm taking a bet that is kind of a little bit of a dampener on people's morale right now because Milos Raonic just got back from a long hiatus and he won his first round match, but I think that he's going to have a level of ring rust going into the second match, so I'm taking Thompson over Raonic plus 125.
Ah,
Raonic
boo.
is the favorite at let's see if I can pronounce this correctly. Hertogenbosch.
Ja.
And so I think
Sprechen Sie Deutsch, Aidan?
that, unfortunately, no. Stuttgart, that's the other tournament going on right now. But yeah, I think he is just going to have that level of hasn't played in 2 years. Played the first match, wins it, but I think there's going to be a level of shakiness going into that second round.
I agree. This will be a good one. All right, I'm gonna get into match of the week. Mine was Rude versus Jerry. It wasn't the best of matches. It was only 3 sets. Rude got him 7-6, 7-5, 7-5. But I'm giving all credit to Rude for this because he lost to him previously in Geneva, like pretty handedly, and to be able to make the adjustments, come back and beat him in 3 sets is very impressive.
Yeah, but I mean, really tight. I mean, the fact that he
Yeah, very
had to go
tight.
to
Yeah,
7 games in all 3 of the sets really shows how close it was and how tightly contested.
exactly. So
For me, I'm going to go with Runa over Cerundolo. It was 7-6, 3-6, 6-4, 1-6, 7-6. I talked about it earlier, but it was just a super intense back and forth match. had the drama, and to me really just kept you at the edge of your seat. I mean, when Cerundolo took that fourth set 1-6, you kind of felt he had the momentum going into that fifth set, but then Rune able to grind it out in that last set. And then, I mean, even with Rune's fair play issues, it's hard not to say that he's been playing at like a really impressive level. Like, it's really spectacular to see. I think he was in the mid-30s this time last year, and now he's up at top 5, top 6 in the world. So,
yeah, he will have quite the career ahead of him.
yeah.
He just needs to get his stuff figured out.
Exactly.
Like you said, his fairness.
Yeah.
All right, and that's a wrap for this episode. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Let us know what you think, and we will see you next week. All right, and that's the show. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Painting Lines Podcast. Feel free to shoot us a DM or email us any questions or thoughts at paintinglinespodcast@gmail.com.